Good morning. We're on the record, and this is in the matter of Michael Dixon versus, the state of Ohio versus Michael Dixon. And the case number is 20 CR 0201, and Mr. Dixon is here with his attorneys, and Mr. Pearson and Mr. King are also here. And we're going to continue, I gather, with another day of testimony in the prosecution's case in chief. The jury is present. And as such, who's your next witness?
Thank you. The state would like to call Lieutenant Detective Robison.
Waterston?
Robison.
Robinson, okay, all right, thank you. Come on in, detective. Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear a testimony you're about to provide in this cause is truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please be seated. If you're comfortable, pull the microphone in front of you and remove your mask. And detective, the media, I gather, is covering this through Zoom or on some sort of live feed. They may want to use your picture. Do you object to that?
No, that's fine.
Okay, so you can use his image. All right, go ahead, Mr. Pearson, when you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Can you state your name, spelling your last name for the record, please?
My name is Dustin J. Robison, and it's R-O-B-I-S-O-N. I'm a detective lieutenant with the Hocking County Sheriff's Office, 25 East 2nd Street, Logan, Ohio, 43138.
How long have you been a detective with the Logan County Sheriff's Office?
Be the Hocking County Sheriff's Office. I've been a detective I separated service as a detective when I got promoted. Overall, I believe this is my 7th year as a detective total.
Did you have any other prior law enforcement experience?
Yes, this is start my 20th year in law enforcement this month.
Okay. Could you go through your experience as a law enforcement officer with the jury, please?
Absolutely. I started in 2001 as a deputy sheriff for the Hocking County Sheriff's Office. Spent 7 years on patrol, assigned to the western part of the district for the county of Hocking. I went 3 years as a detective undercover with at that time, it was the Fairfield Hocking Major Crimes Unit. So it's a narcotics task force. After 3 years, I went to the state of Ohio and worked as a drug agent for the pharmacy board for about 5 years. Kept my commission, kept working part-time with the Hocking County Sheriff's Office. After 5 years, I came back to the Hocking County Sheriff's Office as a narcotics detective with, at that time, the SIU division. I took a promotion as a lieutenant, spent 20 months back on the road in patrol in uniform on midnight shift. And then I was reassigned to the Detective Bureau first part of 2019, and I've been there since to the General Division.
What is the SIU unit?
So that is the Sheriff's Interdiction Unit. It's a in-house narcotics interdiction unit. Our primary goal was to locate and arrest drug dealers.
And currently you're a lieutenant, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
How long have you been a lieutenant?
For 4 years now.
Can you tell us where the lieutenant rank falls in the rank at your sheriff's office?
Absolutely. So we start with the deputy. It could be a patrol deputy, it could be a school resource officer. Once you're promoted, you can be assigned as a detective. Then the next step up would be the first line supervision, which in our office is the lieutenant. That's where I fall at. I am the supervisor over the general division, investigative division.
Okay. And who is above you?
Above me, I have my chief deputy, Caleb Moritz, and then above him would be Sheriff Laney North.
What are your duties and responsibilities as a lieutenant detective with the Hocking County Sheriff's Office?
I supervise 3 detectives underneath my command. Our division is the General Division of Investigations, so it can be anywhere from a simple theft case up into including homicides, anywhere in between.
So you investigate those?
Yes, sir, we do.
As a deputy, does a deputy investigate those?
They can. They lay down the foundation. They are the ones that primarily respond to the calls of service, be a 911 call or a general phone call in reporting the crime. They are tasked with the initial investigation. When it becomes serious or complex, and then I am notified and I assign or assist with a detective.
You have it. What is your jurisdiction?
My jurisdiction currently is the Hocking County. So anywhere within the 423 square miles of Hocking County is my primary jurisdiction.
And what hours do you work?
My normal hours are Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, but those are my normal hours, and I usually work beyond those.
Do you often get calls in the middle of the night?
It's very common, yes.
What do you do as a detective when you're called out to a scene to investigate something?
As a detective, my primary, after the initial situation, whatever it may be, is stabilized. It is the documentation, photographing, I'm documenting witnesses, documenting the crime scene, the weather, what I see, what I feel, what I can hear on the crime scene.
Are others often involved, or do you conduct an investigation yourself?
It can actually be both. So if it's a simple theft case, maybe a burglary where patrol deputies caught the persons in the act. If it's a simple crime scene, a small crime scene, a detective can normally handle that by themselves. But when you start dealing with a large crime scene, multiple crime scenes, or a seriousness, we got to do follow up at the hospitals, whatever it may be, then we call in more people as necessary.
Did you have an opportunity to investigate the death of James Whitaker?
Yes, sir, I did.
How did that investigation begin?
I was originally notified. I just got back from vacation. It was July 25th of 2020. That evening, I received a phone call from our communications letting me know that we had a missing person case that was currently being investigated by Lieutenant Sean Champ. I ended up speaking to Lieutenant Champ that night. He filled me in, notified me of what he'd been told and what he found and determined so far. Once that determination was made, it was late. I believe it was like 2,300 hours, which would be about 11 p.m. on the 25th. We decided to follow up with that the next morning with the on-duty detective, which was Detective Joe Kinnear.
And how did it progress?
So Sunday in July, now it's in the July 26, 2020, I met with my partner, which is Detective Joe Kinnear, along with, I found out that Lieutenant McManaway was actually there the previous day, earlier in the day before I was notified, being at that crime scene. We went out to the crime scene. My task, my primary task on that case was the documentation. I immediately started taking photographs, we were taking video. We actually went to the house and the property and started looking around trying to find James Whitaker. At the residence, Dustin Evelyn was at the residence and we talked to him, interviewed him as well, and got the information from him.
Okay.
When we were looking through the house, we started looking through the property, the buildings. We were looking for any obvious signs of struggle. We were looking for Mr. Whitaker. Maybe he was hurt. Maybe he needed help. We go into the residence, Dustin Evelyn showing us around. He shows us a basement door that was, the lock had been removed. We went to look to make sure that Mr. Whitaker was not inside, hurt, bleeding. When we went in, this basement is a mess. I believe it's like the beginning of a Hoarder episode. When we walk in, we start looking for Mr. Whitaker, and there's 2 blood drops right inside the door, what appeared to be blood drops. So at that point, I made a determination to stop. We went and got a search warrant for a more thorough search of the property.
I'm going to take a step back. Have you investigated missing persons before in your duties as a Hocking County detective?
Yes, I have.
Okay. About how many times?
Missing persons?
Yes.
Probably between 30 to 50.
Okay.
Most missing persons are resolved pretty quickly.
Have you had a chance to investigate homicide cases?
I have.
About how many homicide cases have you investigated?
As a detective, probably approximately about eight homicides.
You said as a detective, have you investigated homicides in some other capacity?
I've been the initial responding officers on other cases when I was a deputy.
About how many of those?
I believe 2 as a deputy.
Okay. All right, so at this point, you're inside the residence. You've received a missing persons call or notification. You're inside the residence. You find blood. Is that correct?
That's correct. We found the 2 droplets that appear to be human blood. That is correct.
Okay. Did that cause some sort of alarm in your mind?
It did. If we're missing or we're looking for a person who's missing and we find suspected blood, that does become worrisome.
Okay. And so again, what did you do after that?
We stopped and got the search warrant for the more thorough search of the residence and the property.
Okay. And after you get the search warrant, what do you do?
Once we get the search warrant, we go back there and again, we're documenting. We collect blood samples from the 2 blood drops that we received or that we observed, and we did a more thorough search of the property. Okay. That way, with a search warrant, we can actually go through items looking for different items of evidence instead of just looking to see if there was a body or anybody hurt or inside the residence.
Okay. So at this point, before you got the search warrant, was it your understanding that there was only a limited amount of looking into someone else's house you were legally able to do?
Absolutely.
Okay, because your goal at that time was just to locate James Whitaker, is that right?
That is correct.
Was it a homicide? When did it turn to something other than a missing person search?
When we combine the original information where it was not unnormal for Mr. Whitaker to disappear, but it was very abnormal for him not to communicate with mother, that elevated the seriousness of the missing person. It became suspicious. That's not very common for the subject, Mr. Whitaker. Combine that with the blood, and then during the initial interview with Mr. Dixon, that's when we discovered that we did have an actual homicide.
Okay. And what did you do after that, Lieutenant?
After the initial interview with Mr. Dixon, or?
Yes.
Okay. Once Mr. Dixon was interviewed and he admitted to killing Mr. Whitaker back at the property and disposed of the body in the burn pit, I left the sheriff's office and went back to the crime scene, and actually I strung the...
Lieutenant, I'm going to interrupt you. You ended with going to get a search warrant for a more in-depth search.
Correct.
And then you began with talking to Mr. Dixon and him confessing to the crime. Is that right?
That's correct.
There's more stuff in between, isn't there?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's talk about that.
All right. So once on the Sunday, we collected the evidence. We were told by the family where Mr. Dixon's vehicle was located at Mr. Amarine's residence inside Fenton County on Goose Creek Road. We spoke to Mr. Amarine that day, or that evening now, located the vehicle, and I photographed the vehicle. At that point was the conclusion of that day. That'd be Sunday. Monday, we reviewed the case first.
Sorry to interrupt you. Whose vehicle?
Be Mr. Dixon's. It's a blue, I believe it's a 1999 Volkswagen Beetle.
So help us understand how you come to know where this vehicle was.
During the search, we were notified by Mr. Whitaker's daughters that arrived to the residence, told us that the vehicle was at Mr. Amarine's residence on Goose Creek Road. It's actually just inside Vinton County. It's our Goose Creek Road. It turns into Vinton County, and this would be immediately the first residence on the right inside Vinton County. We go to the residence, and I observed the blue Volkswagen Beetle setting behind a open pole barn or a partially enclosed pole barn, and I speak to Mr. Amarine at that time.
What tipped you off to go look for Mr. Dixon in the first place? Because after all, you were looking for Mr. Whitaker.
That's correct. So on Saturday, would be July 25th, part of my conversation I had with Lieutenant Champ, I also found out that Mr. Dixon and his daughter Melody Dixon was also living at the residence. When the family was showing up, they confronted Mr. Dixon, trying to find out where their dad was, Mr. Whitaker. At that point, when, hey, we called the sheriff's office, the law enforcement's coming, Mr. Dixon and Melody leave the scene or leave that property in that blue, I believe it's a 1999 Volkswagen Beetle. That's where we first become familiar with that vehicle.
Okay. You did. So again, why did you feel it necessary to talk to Mr. Dixon?
We also found out from the family that there was property missing, including firearms and a large television that was no longer inside the residence. Also combined, when they confronted Mr. Dixon, they were told that Mr. Dixon had no idea, had no explanation where Michael went. Or I'm sorry, where Mr. Whitaker went.
Okay. Did you make any conclusions or determinations based on what you heard?
Mr. Dixon became a person of interest. At the least, he would have some information, try to narrow down the time frame of when he last saw Mr. Whitaker, and what kind of circumstance did Mr. Whitaker leave, or why did he leave the residence. At that time, we believed that Mr. Dixon would be able to provide that information. So he's not a person he was not a suspect at that point, but he was a person of interest that we wanted to talk to.
Okay. Did you have any record of Mr. Dixon contacting your office or anyone contacting your office before July 25th, 2020 to state that James Whitaker was missing?
There's nothing I'm aware of at this time.
Were you looking for anyone else at this time before you found Mr. Dixon's vehicle? Were you looking for anyone else?
We were looking for his daughter as well, Melody Dixon.
Okay. Why were you looking for her?
Because she was also living with Michael and James Whitaker at the residence. We thought she would have some additional information that she could provide to be helpful in locating Mr. Whitaker.
Okay. And just for clarity's sake, where is this residence?
It's 23605 Chestnut Grove Road. It's a South Bloomingville address, Benton Township, Hocking County, Ohio.
Okay. About how far of a drive is it from this courthouse here?
Oh, from here, depending on the traffic to Old Man's Cave, it could be anywhere from 40 to and probably up to excess of 60 minutes, depending on what kind of traffic you get into. If it's a holiday weekend, you're probably just going to take your closer to an hour to get there because of all the traffic.
Okay. Can you describe the scenery around that residence?
It's a very beautiful area. It's in the rural part of Hocking County. It would be located southwest of Old Man's Cave area. It'd be southwest also of South Bloomingville, familiar with that area.
Okay. Would you consider that residence secluded?
Oh, yes.
Okay, especially in July when there are trees growing and leaves and things like that?
Yes.
So you locate Mr. Dixon's vehicle at, you stated, Kenny Emerine's?
That is correct. That is the residence, excuse me, just inside Benton County on Goose Creek Road.
Okay. And what did you do when you located that vehicle, Lieutenant?
I asked Mr. Amerine if I could look at the vehicle, and he said, yeah, sure. Myself and Detective Kinnear walked over to the vehicle. We looked inside. We didn't open up the door. We didn't search anything inside the vehicle. I ran the registration, and I confirmed the registration matched that vehicle. So I'm looking at the VIN, the match of registration, make sure we have the correct vehicle identified. And I took photographs of that vehicle parked at that residence.
Again, what date is this?
That would be Sunday, July the 26th of 2020.
And what did you do after taking photographs of that vehicle?
We left the residence and returned back to the sheriff's office to process the evidence, to put the evidence into our evidence room.
Okay. Did you locate Mr. Dixon or Melody Dixon at Kenny Emerine's house with the vehicle?
We did not.
Okay. Did you inquire as to where they may be?
Yes, I did. Mr. Amarine at first had no idea what I was talking about, as well as he did not know where Mr. Dixon or Miss Dixon was.
But their car was there.
That is correct.
All right. What did you do after that, Lieutenant?
As I said, we went back to the sheriff's office and we actually processed the evidence that we collected from Dixon and Whitaker's residence and placed it into the evidence room. At that point, we ended our day, and that would have been Sunday, July 26th.
Okay. Just a few questions. Just a few questions about that. Whose residence was it? Who owned that property?
It was James Whitaker's residence. He was the person that was as the owner of that property.
Okay. And did you come to find out that Michael Dixon and Melody Dixon were just living there?
Yeah, we were told that they lived there for approximately about 18 months. Was pretty much the common answer we got about 18 months before we were involved in Mr. Whitaker's murder.
Okay. You said you retrieved evidence from that location after retrieving the search warrant. Is that right?
That is correct.
Once again, on the record, and this is in the matter of the state of Ohio versus Michael Dixon. Mr. Dixon present along with his attorneys, and the prosecution team is here, and we're going to continue our direct examination of Detective Robison. Go ahead, Mr. Pearson.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I think I left off where the defendant was being interviewed, and you would all go back to the house and look for things. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about that, how that progressed and what you were doing.
Yes, sir. So Monday night, which would be now, again, July 27th, 2020, during the interview when ultimately Mr. Dixon confessed to killing Mr. Whitaker, disposing of the body, the TV, and the shotgun, I actually left the interview, the actual sheriff's office. My responsibility came to securing the crime scene. So I traveled the 30, 40 minutes back to the residence on Chestnut Grove Road, and I posted a guard, which was a deputy overnight, as well as I actually secured the crime scene with crime scene tape, the caution tape that you see on TV. So I have the whole perimeter of the search area cordoned off of where the burn pit's located.
Why did you do that, Lieutenant?
That becomes crime scene security. Once we know it is a crime scene, we secure it. That way, additional evidence can't be brought in. People can't take evidence away. It's actually secured, so it stops. Everything stops. Also, that night, we were expecting heavy rain overnight. We got a large tarp to actually cover the burn site, the burn pit. That way, it protects it where it's not getting additionally wet overnight, because we knew we were going to be excavating it the following morning. So we covered it with a tarp. I requested the BCI&I crime scene division. They have the expertise. They've done digs before, looking for body parts before. They met with us in the morning. I obtained an additional search warrant for the property. Tuesday, July 28th, 2020. We go back to the crime scene and we start actually excavating the burn pit.
Was this the first time that you and or someone from your team is going into the burn pit looking for things?
Yes, we did not know until that previous night with Mr. Dixon's interview that Mr. Whitaker was located in the burn pit.
So tell us what happened when you went to dig for Mr. Dixon's remains. I'm sorry, Mr. Whitaker's remains.
Yes, sir. We start with the documentation, photographs. I'm taking photographs, I'm documenting. Ohio BCI&I Crime Scene Division, they're taking photographs, documenting. Along with the Hocking County Coroner's Office investigators, we proceed to we uncover, after pictures are taken, we roll back the tarp, additional photographs and videos taken of the crime scene, And then with the coroner's office, we actually start going through the burn pile looking for human remains.
How do you progress through the burn pile? Is there an order, or do you just go right in? How do you do it?
We started with a small area where it looked like most likely Mr. Whitaker's remains would be in the burn pit. And piece by piece, we actually start peeling it back, removing the trash can or the trash from the burn pit, pop cans, debris, whatever may be in that burn pit. We start going piece by piece by piece.
And how long did this take? How long did you do this?
Hours. It was several hours processing the burn pit, looking for human remains.
How many participants were with you looking for the human remains?
I believe on the initial day, there's probably close to 8 investigators on the scene.
Okay, would that include BCI investigators as well as sheriff's officer?
That is correct. That is correct. BCI had 3 personnel. 1 was in training. It's not very common to get 3 crime scene technicians from BCI, but we did have 3 from them, along with the 2 coroner's investigators, along with my detectives were there too.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that you saw everything that they were doing?
Yes, fairly much, especially when we start going through the burn pit, that would be correct.
Can you describe the burn pit, please?
The burn pit itself, it's probably about the size of this room here between you to me to the walls to the jury pit. It's probably about 40 by 40. I don't remember the exact measurements. But this is a burn pit that is to the right of the house if you're facing it from Chestnut Grove. And it is just full of trash, pop cans, mattresses, anything you would expect to find that someone would throw out from trash is in this trash pile.
Okay. How far away is that burn pit from the residence?
When I measured it, it's not a straight line, but I actually measured it by the way I would assume you would walk, just kind of wiggle through the property where you could actually get between the cars and the stuff that's on the property. It was roughly 292 feet from the front door.
So going back to the first day of the dig, you're trying to find remains. Did you find anything that sparked your interest?
Yes, the very first piece very well sparked our interest that we found.
Talk about it.
The first initial piece, we found the top scalp of the Mr. Whitaker, what we found out to be Mr. Whitaker. We found the scalp as the first piece we found.
Okay. And what else?
Several additional bone fragments and bones, partial bones, that were in the burn pit as well.
Okay, and what did you do with those?
Those were photographed, documented. They were turned over to me from the crime scene, Ohio BCI and I crime scene, transferred them to my custody, and then I transferred them to Keegan Rose, which is the coroner's investigator. Those bones were turned over to him to take to the coroner's office.
What coroner's office?
Initially, it would have came to Dr. Cummin, the Hocking County coroner's office, when they were ultimately transported to Montgomery County coroner's office.
Okay. But you left them in the custody of Keegan Rose, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And so once you transfer that over, it's kind of their responsibility to go from there?
That's correct.
Okay, and then do they get back with you with their findings and information?
Yes, and in this case, I actually retrieved the bones from the coroner's office as well. That would be the Montgomery County's coroner's office when they were done with them.
So once how many bones or bone fragments did you find that first day?
I don't recall an exact number the first day. I want to say, I did not count each one, but there's probably in excess of 30 pieces of bone fragments.
Okay. Did you find any bone fragments any other days?
Yes, we did.
Okay. So you said you were there on this particular day during the first dig in the burn pit. It lasted a couple of hours?
Several hours. It lasted the vast majority of the day.
Okay. And what did you do after that?
We, as they were finishing up the burn pit, me and the other female BCI agent crime scene, we went into the residence and started processing the residents.
What does processing residents mean, or processing a crime scene mean? What does that entail?
That's a great question. So what I'm looking for, I'm identifying anything, any physical evidence. I'm trying to locate that physical evidence. If I do observe and locate the physical evidence, then I document it, usually with a scene placard or by the least a photograph. I've taken measurements, and then ultimately I'm collecting that item as well.
Why do you collect it?
Evidence, the physical evidence that we take, this is what we can submit to the crime lab to get physical tests, to get accurate tests, to be able to determine, it'd be DNA, being firearms, arson case, whatever it may be. We're getting that physical scientist saying this is the physical evidence that we have.
How many investigations, not only homicide investigations, how many other investigations have you partaken?
Oh, I don't know if I can answer that. Hundreds, if not thousands.
Okay.
Quite a bit in 20 years.
Hundreds or thousands?
There's been a vast amount of investigations, anywhere from thefts to homicides, terrorism cases, you name it, I've done it within 20 years.
Okay. And with respect to going out to a crime scene initially, do you always know exactly what's going on during that initial investigation?
Sometimes, but not all the times. Mostly we do not. We may have a initial aspect of the crime, and it may turn out not to be what we thought it was to start with. So a missing person case may become a homicide case, to give an example.
All right. Like it did in this case?
Like it did in this case, yes, sir.
So when you're out there and you're taking photographs of things and collecting evidence, is that evidence always important later?
Is it always important later?
Yes.
Certain pieces, yes, absolutely, but evidence is always very important.
Okay. But you don't know the scope of the investigation at the time that you're taking the pictures always and collecting evidence, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so sometimes you get photographs of things that may seem important at the time, but turn out later to not be important, is that correct?
That is correct.
So you process the scene after the first dig into the burn pit looking for Mr. Whitaker's remains?
Yes.
And how long does that take?
Again, hours.
Can you describe the residence, please?
It's I would call it a cabin style residence. It has a block foundation basement that is opened. It's an open walkout in the basement. So the front part sets on a hill. So the upper floor, the first floor, you walk out on the front side. It goes down the hill. In the basement, you would walk out of the basement door as well.
Okay. What else is in the residence?
You walk in, there's a main entry room. I would call it a walk-in room. There is a room to the left that has a closed door that was covered, you couldn't get to. You could either go up, it's like a split level, so you could either go straight up to the kitchen area, or you'd go to the right, you would go straight down to the basement area where Mr. Dixon and Melody Dixon was living. Okay. When you get into the kitchen, if you turn left, you have a bedroom, which was Mr. Whitaker's, on the left, and then you would have an opposing bathroom on the right-hand side behind the kitchen.
Is that the extent of the main living quarters? Is that right? Yes,
that is correct.
And then there has been testimony that there is another building on the property, correct?
Yes.
Okay, can you describe that?
It is I don't want to call it a pole barn, but it's a large garage style building. It has pieces of wood, metal on it. It has different kind of construction, garage door, overhead door, along with a man door that you would walk into.
Did you process that as well?
Yes, I took photographs of inside that building, the garage area.
Okay. So after processing the scene of inside the residence at 23605 Chestnut Grove Road, where did you go? What did you do?
After which day?
We're still on the first day after the dig, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so let's progress from there.
So after the initial dig, we again, we processed the evidence, and then I had to return the evidence to our office where I would put it away and secure it into our actual evidence room to safeguard.
Okay. Did your investigation end right there?
On that initial day?
Yes.
I believe so.
Were there other things that you looked for? Other times you went out to the residence in the burn pit?
Yes, there was additional times we went out there.
Okay, so let's progress to the following day.
The following day, so now we are into the 29th, July 29th, which would be now Wednesday, July 29th. Based on the information where we did not find the television and the shotgun in that burn pit, additional interviews and walkthrough was done with Mr. Dixon, where he provided additional information of where that gun actually and the TV actually went to.
Okay. What do you mean he provided additional information of where that gun and TV went to?
When he was confronted by Lieutenant Downs and Detective Kinnear, we don't have a TV, we don't have a shotgun in the burn pit. He provided additional accounts to what happened with the TV along with the firearm that he alleged that he used.
All right. So when you were looking in the burn pit, you were going in there were you going in there with the idea that you would find remains of a shotgun and or a television?
I believe what I would find at the least would be a somewhat melted TV. You could still see somewhat of the electronics in there. There was no sign of that. Along with, at the least, we would have the actual barrel of the shotgun. I believe he would be unable to destroy the barrel of the shotgun in a fire. And there was no sign of any kind of type of barrel in that fire pit or television.
Okay. So when you're going out there, you're going off of what the defendant told you, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you indicated you did not find the remains of those items.
That is correct.
But you became aware of where they were. Is that correct?
That's correct.
How did you become aware of where they were?
We became aware between Mr. Dixon and Melody Dixon.
So did it take confronting the defendant with another story that he told you where the television and that weapon was?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And where were they?
The television was at Mr. Amarine's house.
I'm sorry. We have multiple Amarines. Which Amarine?
I believe it was Kenny Amarine
Okay.
is where the television was at. The firearm, the shotgun, he said it was at his, I believe it's his stepfather, which is Frank Specie, along with his mother, Denise Specie, 21,000, I think it's 299 Sam's Creek Road, which is in Salt Creek Township, Hocking County, Ohio.
Did you go looking for those items?
I did not. I requested a search warrant for Mr. Specie's residence by detectives that were working in conjunction with the investigation. They're the ones that went to the residence and recovered that shotgun.
Okay. And did they inform you of where that shotgun was recovered from?
Yes, sir. It's documented where they recovered the shotgun from.
Where did they recover it from?
They got it from, it'd be Mr. Dixon's half-brother, John Dixon's vehicle that was parked outside that residence, which would be in his stepfather and his mother's residence on Sam's Creek Road in, again, Hocking County, Ohio.
Okay. What about the television?
The television was recovered by Detective Kinnear at Kenny Amarine's residence on Goose Creek Road, and that was in Vinton County, just inside Vinton County from Hocking County.
Okay. Now, we heard Detective Kinnear testify. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware he testified, yes.
Okay. He indicated that the television came from Jeff Amarine.
I believe Jeff is Kenny's son, and I don't recall how the TV got there, but I do know it came from the Amarine's residence.
So you recovered firearm from the trunk of the defendant's brother's vehicle, and you recovered a television. Did you come to find out who was the owner of that television?
Yes, that was the missing television of Mr. Whitaker's. That was what was originally reported missing by the family.
And again, the defendant told you it was in the burn pit?
That is correct. Initially, he told us that TV was in the burn pit.
After those items were recovered, what else did you do?
After those items were recovered, we did a walkthrough of the crime scene with Mr. Dixon and Mrs. Dixon.
What was the purpose of that?
We were still trying to piece the crime scene together. Initially, when we did the crime scene, the residence on Tuesday, the location where he said that the fight over the firearm started on top of the stairs in the kitchen, we could not find or we could not locate any physical evidence to support his story.
Right.
So when we went back to do the walkthrough, we found out that the crime scene actually was cleaned up and the refrigerator, the shelving, different things were moved. They would stage the crime scene, and we had to find that original crime scene and put it back to what it was, where we could find the physical evidence, the blood, the smears, the cleanup.
Okay. You said stage the crime scene. What does that mean to you?
Stage the crime scene, if it's staged, when we get there, it's not the original crime scene, it's been altered. In this case, the fridge was pushed where it happened at. Allegedly, the fridge was actually pushed across the room, and the shelf that was sitting sideways was pushed back, hiding the blood spatter that was against the wall, the floor, and the back door window.
When you're talking to the defendant on that particular day during the walkthrough, actually, can you detail what the walkthrough is?
Walkthrough, I've used this several times with success, especially with homicides, when we able to talk to the defendant and show us step by step what that person, the defendant or a witness, says. What we're doing is we're trying to either support or disprove what the person's saying by physical evidence, what we can see, what they're showing us, if things match up, or where we can put things back together. In a case like this, the crime scene was altered, so we had to put everything back together to find the original crime scene.
Okay. Was it in a different place than on top of the landing?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And again, the defendant had indicated that the scuffle between he and the victim were on top of this landing.
Right. It started out being on top of the stairs, right at the top where the TV was. The TV had blood spatter. That's why he disposed of it originally. But the actual crime scene, when we went back and Mr. Dixon was interviewed again, it actually switched the backside of the kitchen where the shelf was actually blocking the door that you couldn't see behind it, with the blood spatter on the door, the ceiling, and the floor below it.
Did the defendant give yet another story on how the victim was shot?
At that time, yes.
Where did the defendant indicate that his daughter was at the time that he shot the victim?
During the walkthrough that I was present for with Mr. Dixon, the way he put it, he was at the bottom of or top of the stairs, which is that split level. So he's standing in the middle of that split level, and he's actually in an upward angle into the kitchen. There is a few inches room between the wall and the shelf, and you could actually see somebody right there. Okay. So he alleged that he was standing at the bottom, Mr. Whitaker was standing at the top, and Melody, his daughter, was laying on the floor to the left. He wasn't able to see her.
I'm sorry, what was that last part? He was not able to see her?
He was not able to see. The way the angle is, you would just be enough, and we documented this in our report and pictures and video, where you could just see one person, a human head, about the size of a human head, in between the wall and the shelf area.
The defendant during that walkthrough also talked about cleaning the residence, is that right?
After the homicide?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct.
What are the various items that he indicated he cleaned?
There was a bottle of Clorox we recovered in the kitchen. I believe he said it was about half full. He used rags with bleach to wipe the windows, which we could actually, the back door window, you could actually see the smear mark still, the floor and the ceiling as well, where the blood spatter of Mr. Whitaker had been located.
Okay. What did he say he did with James Whitaker's body?
He told us that he loaded it on a deer sled. He rolled it on a deer sled, and he told us that he was able to get it down the hallway, or through the kitchen, down the hallway, down the stairs, and out the door, and took it over to the burn pit.
Can you describe that path of travel that the defendant indicates he drug James Whitaker's body on the sled?
Are you referring to inside the residence?
Yes.
It was very cluttered. It was, I don't want to say junk, but it was just items atop of items, where it would be almost impossible to be able to negotiate the sled through the clutter down the steps and out the door. And even when you get out the door, you have a front deck that has more items, tables, chairs, through the front of it, where you would have to negotiate that as well, or move everything to get the sled out.
Did the defendant indicate that he had help in cleaning up?
Yes, he did.
So after this walkthrough, the defendant takes you out to where?
When we leave the kitchen area, we walk down, he takes us over to the burn pit to show us where Mr. Whitaker was burnt.
Okay. Was that before or after you had dug into the burn pit?
It was actually between, so it was after the first the first dig in the burn pit and before the second dig in the burn pit.
Okay. What caused you to go back in and look for more?
We were told by the coroner that we were missing a large amount of bones that he felt that would not have been able to be disposed of. There was also a arm, probably about 3/4 of the arm. The anthropologist, when she was reviewing the photographs, she saw the arm, saying that that was most likely a human arm. We went back to collect that arm, which was located between the burn pit and the residence, so within that 292 feet. Along with, we went and did a complete search of that burn pit. So there we went piece by piece and actually dug everything out of that burn pit to verify nothing else was in that burn pit completely.
All right. So when do you go back the second time?
I think it was August the 10th, I believe,
Okay.
of 2020.
So how many days after the walkthrough with the defendant did you go back to the burn pit?
Approximately just over 10 days.
Do you recall what individuals were with you, investigators or officers?
That day, Ohio BCI and I did not come back to the burn pit. We did it by our own detectives, by myself and my co-partner over the drug unit, which is Detective Aaron Cherry was there, Detective Sam Angle was there, Detective Barker was there, Detective, I believe Kinnear was there, and the others I would have to look to make sure I got it correct who was there.
Okay. And how long did this take?
Again, it took several hours. This was us 100% going through the burn pit, actually removing everything. We even took trash bags to bag up all the trash to be able to set it and move it away from the burn pit to verify we went through the entire burn pit to the best of our abilities.
And can you describe the size of items that you were retrieving and finding?
In the burn pit, I believe it was 36 partial bones, additional bones we found inside that burn pit.
So that would be the second day?
This-
The second time you looked into the burn pit?
Yes, that would be accurate.
Okay. You found-
Correct. We found approximately, I think it was 36 pieces of bones, bone fragments, along with, we recovered the rest of that arm that the anthropologist told us about that we went back in to collect.
How big were the pieces?
Good question. Probably the smallest piece was part of the fingers, and we were getting large partial bones, probably 12 inches roughly, maybe up to a foot.
Okay, so the smaller pieces would be around what size, an inch or two?
Size of a quarter, maybe.
Okay. And all the way up until about a foot in length?
I would say so, yes. That would be accurate.
What were you doing with these items as you were retrieving them?
Again, we were photographing, documenting, and collected the bones, which I submitted. I took them to the coroner's office, to the actual doctor come in to turn the bones over to them.
Okay. And again, this was for analysis purposes?
That is correct, yes.
Speaking of this burn pit, I want to jump back to the walkthrough with the defendant. He indicated that he kept it going with fire. Is that right?
Yes, I believe he said it lasted for several days.
Okay. What type of items did he state he put on the burn pit or on the fire?
Pretty much anything he could find, gasoline. There was Coleman camp fuel that was specifically mentioned that he used.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Coleman camp fuel.
Okay.
Clothing, tires, pretty much anything that would ignite or continue the fire that he could find he was using.
Did he make any comments about raking the fire?
That's correct.
What comments did he make?
That he would restoke the fire or restoke the body and kept on turning it and would rake it back and forth, getting it to keep on burning.
All right, so going back to the second dig at the fire pit, what happens after you complete that second dig? What do you do, Lieutenant?
That day,
Yes, was there anything else you did that day?
there was a mention of a jawbone. We did not locate that in the fire pit. We brought Mr. Whitaker back out. I'm sorry, I apologize. Mr. Dixon back out. He told us that he recovered, the only bone he said he took was a partial jawbone. We did not find that in the burn pit. He told us it was in the area of the basement. It was underneath the dresser in some kind of plastic Tupperware container. We went back there.
Let me stop you right there. You had another conversation with the defendant?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and he mentioned something about a jawbone?
Correct, yes.
Okay, what did he say about the jawbone?
He said he observed a jawbone as when he was stoking the fire, and he removed it from the fire, and he took it inside the residence, and he told us it was a, I want to say it was a plastic, I believe it was like a orange Halloween type container, plastic container, as he was referring to it, and it was located in his bedroom or in the basement. When you walk in, it would be to your left where the dresser was setting, but he thought it was underneath that dresser in the basement.
Okay. So did you go back to the residence looking for that?
Yeah, we actually took Mr. Dixon back to the residence with us, and he was pointing out the area that he thought it was. We did a thorough search of that area. We weren't able to locate it. At that point, we stopped. Mr. Dixon was taken back to jail later, and we obtained an additional search warrant. And when we went back again to the residence, the way the basement was so cluttered, we actually started removing piece by piece every item from the basement, almost every item, to verify that jawbone was not in the basement of the residence.
Did you get information on who lived in the basement?
Yes, we received that the initial day. That had been Sunday, July 25th, 2020, when we initially met with Dustin and Evelyn. He told us that Michael and Melody Dixon lived in the basement.
Okay. So that's where you're looking for the jawbone as well?
That is correct. So initially, he gave us consent, written consent to go. We couldn't find it. We obtained additional search warrant for the residence.
Okay. How long were you out there looking for the jawbone?
With Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
30 to 60 minutes, maybe. I don't recall exactly. It wasn't a great time. It was dark. We decided to come back again with a more thorough search.
Okay. And how long were you there for the more thorough search?
Hours. We literally, a team of ours, moved piece by piece the items from the basement where Mr. Dixon and Melody Dixon was living, and actually brought them out the door to be able to search better inside the residence or in the basement area looking for this jawbone.
Okay. Can you describe the basement, please?
The basement, when you walk in the door, you can go up or down. You take the right, you would go down into the basement where there's a door. You open up the door, it is a room, has a small fireplace, not a fireplace, but a fire stove when you first walk in. You go to your left, you would have the sliding glass door on the back side. There is a washer dryer room if you continue to walk straight. If you go left, there's one, I think there's 2 bedrooms on the left as well.
Were you able to locate the jawbone?
No, we were unable, or excuse me, we were never able to locate the jawbone.
Okay. In your dig, did you, searching for the remains of James Whitaker, did you locate any teeth?
No, we didn't. We were specifically looking for small items. We even had a sifter going through the dirt and the ash looking for anything like a tooth. So we were even looking for minute pieces of bone from the burn pit.
Okay. Did you have a conversation with the defendant about what happened to the teeth of James Whitaker?
I did not. The other detectives did.
Okay. And what did that information reveal?
Mr. Dixon actually smashed Mr. Whitaker's teeth with a hammer to ultimately destroy the tooth, so we can't find it.
So after going back, looking for the jawbone, and clearing out the basement area to look for the jawbone that you never found, what did you do after that, Lieutenant?
What day are you referring to in specific? That day that we're looking for the jawbone?
The next day? Or days after that?
Days after, that's when we did the second burn pile, went through looking for any additional, and we found the bones. Additionally, additional evidence was submitted to the crime lab as we went, started obtaining the DNA for the items that we recovered.
Can you talk about the rest of the investigation, Lieutenant?
Yes.
Okay. What else did you do after that?
After that, the evidence, again, the evidence was submitted to the crime lab. We started receiving the evidence reports back. Mr. Whitaker, Mr. Dixon and Mrs. Dixon, they were arraigned and was going through the process with arraignment, and then putting away and processing the evidence.
Do you recall how many witnesses were interviewed with respect to this case?
I think close to 16.
Would that be civilian witnesses?
That would be civilian and I believe law enforcement as well, partially.
You took a series of photos, is that correct?
Yes, at any time we go to the crime scene, like I spoke about, we're documenting. I have a camera that one of my primary responsibilities would be the documentation, taking photographs. That would be correct.
I'm going to hand you some items here, Lieutenant. First witness, Your Honor.
Yes, you may.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit LLL, triple K. Lieutenant, what are those?
This is the items I'm looking at to show everyone. This is our evidence system. This is the items that are in our evidence room that I collected as part of this investigation. The one on the left is the exhibits I brought today. So it says I released it to the court from me today at 8:08 a.m. on May the 7th. The list on my left, your right, this is the complete list from item number 1, I think through 74, 79. Item number 79 would be the last piece of evidence.
So would it be fair to say, Lieutenant, that State's Exhibit LLL is a subset of State's Exhibit triple K?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So everything in triple K, everything in LLL is also included in triple K.
Yeah, so LLL comes from the triple K. That is correct.
And I missed how many exhibits, pieces of evidence that you collected?
There is 79 pieces of evidence underneath this case.
Okay, and how many items did you bring to court today?
$16. 23.
Okay. Now, where are the other items of evidence?
They are still in my custody at the Hocking County Sheriff's Office evidence room.
Okay. For my use as well as defense counsel's use to bring to court if needed?
Yes, I can get any piece if you would like, yes.
Okay. And indicating to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and explaining how Mr. Whitaker was murdered, do you think there is anything of importance that is not in triple L but is in triple K?
Yes, I do believe so.
Okay. What items?
It would be the bones of Mr. Whitaker.
And where are those?
They are buried. Family buried them in a grave.
Okay. So you released the bones of Mr. Whitaker back to the family?
Yes, sir.
While I'm up here, I'm going to have you take a look at State's Exhibit Triple J. Tell me what that is, Lieutenant.
These are a series of photographs. I believe the majority, if not all of these, were actually taken by myself as part of the investigation. Starting with a Sunday, July 25th, the initial one where we're collecting the blood droplets at the bottom of the stairs in Mr. Dixon's bedroom. And Melody's.
You recognize those figures, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, we'll go through them one by one. Would these photos be the most relevant that you feel are important to explaining the death of James Whitaker?
Yes, these are the photographs that I pulled out specifically. I think these are the most important ones, if not vastly important to represent this investigation. That is correct.
You took there were a lot more photographs taken as a result of this investigation, correct?
Yes, there's hundreds of photographs approximately.
Okay.
Well over 100.
Let's go through these photographs. I need to stand up here. What's the first photograph we see? I believe this is State's Exhibit Triple J.
This would have been Sunday, July 26th, 2020. There you go. Thank you. The yellow items that you're seeing, it's numbered 1, 2, and 3. Those are the crime scene placards I use to be able to do what I'm doing now, where I can differentiate between the pieces of evidence and it corresponds to my report showing me what that piece of evidence is. So item 1, this is at the bottom of the stairs. When you enter it in, you go to the right. This is at the bottom of the stairs. Item number 1 and item number 2, part of the crime scene placard, there is a scale to show you how big it is. So we have some kind of reference to use. There is 2 what I called blood droplets at the bottom of the steps that were later confirmed to be human blood. Item number 3 to your top right of that picture, that is the camo bag that also has a dark red liquid or dark red coating to it as well.
This is page 1 of State's Exhibit Triple J. Page 2 of State's Exhibit Triple J.
This was Mr. Dixon's, I believe it was a 1999 Volkswagen Beetle. This was located at Amarine's residence on Goose Creek. This would again be the first residence south of the county line inside Benton County.
Page 3.
This is the initial photographs of Tuesday, July the 28th, 2020, where the yellow tape that you can see, this is where I secured the crime scene with the caution tape says sheriff's line don't cross. This is the security keeping people out and preserving that crime scene. That mailbox, it has that 23605 address. That would actually be Mr. Whitaker's mailbox to his residence. The driveway, I'm standing on the road, so where the crime scene tape crosses over the road, that's actually the driveway into the property.
Page 4.
Page 4, this is from the driveway that you just saw. So now we're to the left. This would be to the right of the driveway. So driveway, this is to the right. The blue tarp that you see, or that blue item down there, is the tarp along with the BCI crime scene unit starting to process the crime scene.
State's Exhibit 5, or page 5 of State's Exhibit J.
Thank you. This is that large blue tarp. This is what I talked about where we protected the dig spot, the burn pit, from that night, about midnight, until the next morning. We had the rain overnight. We didn't want to dig in wet trash. We wanted to keep it, preserve it the best we could at this point until we could come out on this day and actually start processing the crime scene.
Page 6.
These are the bones I originally talked about. This is what turned out to be the arm bone, the 3/4 of the arm, approximately. This was located between the burn pit and the residence.
Page 7.
That is a good overall picture, or partially overall picture of the burn pit. You can see the trash. I see pop cans and different debris inside that trash can, or trash burn pit.
Page 8.
All right, this is, you see on the right side is the crime scene from BCI. along with Keegan Rose on the left. You can see their bottom half pretty much. That scene placard I talk about, that yellow A, that is actually the scalp. It's dictating that is the top of the scalp of Mr. Whitaker is in this burn pit. That is the part of the scalp that I spoke about. That's actually, we pulled it out and I took a better photograph to show what A represented.
Page 10.
10, this is a picture I took the following day. This is the deer sled and the rake that was recovered from the crime scene.
11.
This is the back of Mr. Dixon's head. This is back at the, so this is inside the residence at 23605 Chestnut Grove Road. To the left, that I don't know if you can see. Can I point it out? Would that be okay?
Yeah, Judge, would it be okay for the witness to approach the television?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor.
No objection. Go ahead.
So this is what I spoke to about Mr. Dixon's head. I'm taking this photograph. This is the area between the wall and the shelf I spoke about. That right there is actually Special Agent Fortner with the crime scene unit. It's just enough to see a person's head is what that picture is dictating.
So the defendant stated that that's where he was and where the victim was when he killed him.
That is correct.
Page 12.
That is a photograph that I took of Mr. Dixon. Excuse me. He's actually showing us the blood spatter on top of the ceiling.
Page 13.
That is Mr. Dixon pointing out. Thank you. That is Mr. Dixon pointing to the burn pit, the area that he felt that Mr. Whitaker was located in.
So as you can see here, is it accurate that the burn pit is kind of hilly?
It's on a slight incline or decline. It's going down the hillside.
State's Exhibit JJJ, page 14.
This is the Winchester 1400 shotgun that was recovered from John Dixon's vehicle at Mr. Dixon's Frank and Denise Species residence on Sam's Creek Road.
Page 15.
This was the reason why this is important. Mr. Dixon talked in his interviews, the shot shell that he used to kill Mr. Whitaker, it was in a clear case, a clear shell. This was a clear shell that we found that was discharged in the basement, and this is double-aught buck shot.
What does double-aught buck mean?
So double-aught means it has 9 pellets that are actually being fired from that round. So instead of 1 projectile, you have 9 pellets coming out for double-aught.
Have you shot this double-aught before?
Have I shot this type of brand?
No. Have you shot double-aught before?
Yes, it is actually a common load that we carry with our law enforcement shotguns, would be double-aught.
Why do you carry that load?
Why specifically do I carry that?
Yes.
It's for anti-personnel. If I'm in a lethal force encounter and I want to stop somebody, I want 9 pellets that are going to come out and get a hold of or stop somebody from doing it. It is a nasty, nasty round.
Page 16.
This is pictures of bone fragments we found in the by the burn pit or in the burn pit. I believe specifically it's on the outskirts of the burn pit because I can see the green grass growing in the background.
Page 17.
The placard number 2, this is a chainsaw blade that we recovered in the burn pit as well. And it looks like it was burnt in the burn pit.
Why is that of significance?
From the anthropologist, we found out that the bones that we recovered of Mr. Whitaker's, it had sharp cuts from a sharp instrument, but it also had other edges that would be consistent with being cut up with a chainsaw blade.
Page 18.
This is crime scene placard number 3. This is a later picture of the bones that was laying in the yard between the burn pit and the residence. These are the bones the anthropologist pointed out. Hey, these are probably most likely human bones. And we went back on a search warrant and collected these bones, and that's a picture of this. Item number 3 are those bones that were specifically referred to by the anthropologist of being collected or wanting to be collected.
Page 19.
This is a picture of a person that spoke earlier, Detective Joe Kinnear. Crime scene placard number 5 is located in front of him, along with a rake we recovered from the burn pit area.
So that's not the rake you all were using to dig into the burn pile?
No, I believe this actually belongs to one of the deputies brought this with him, or one of the detectives to use specifically for this, because we had to shift through the items.
I'm sorry, was this found there, or was it used to shift through the items?
I think this was used to shift through the items. I don't recall if this was the actual picture of that, but we did bring our own tools to go through the burn pit to be able to sift through it.
Exhibit JJJ, page 20.
These are the approximately 36 bones, fragments, and like I said, these are additional bones we found in the second burn pit dig, where we went through piece by piece from the top to the bottom. And this is a picture representing those 36 partial bones that we recovered. And that's dated August the 10th, 2020, August the 10th, 2020. And that was located in the burn pit at 33605 Chestnut Grove Road.
Page 21.
These are a scaled picture of item number 3. This is the human arm that was located in the yard between the burn pit and the residence that we spoke of.
What are these smaller pieces here? Are those teeth?
No, those are actually the fingers, the phalanges.
Of victim James Whitaker?
Yes, I believe. I know there was 4 samples of DNA taken. I don't know what 4 samples it was taken out of, but those are Mr. Whitaker's remains.
Page 22.
Yep. This is a additional follow-up after we found out with the anthropologist that Mr. Whitaker was cut up with not only sharp instrument, but a serrated edge, which would be consistent with a chainsaw. We recovered, or we observed, a chainsaw originally inside Mr. Dixon's vehicle. We did not take it because we did not know it was importance until we were notified that a chainsaw could cause those tool marks on the bones. So this is a search warrant we did at Tony's Record Service where the vehicle was located at, and we actually took the Husqvarna chainsaw out of the vehicle. If you remember the chainsaw blade earlier.
Do you recall if this item had a blade on it?
It did not. The bar and the blade was removed.
Page 23.
This is a picture of a hacksaw and a saw with a crime scene placard number 3. That was also taken from Mr. Dixon's vehicle on the additional search warrant at Tony's Record Service in Laurelville, Hocking County, Ohio.
You said it was taken from Tony's Wrecking Service?
It's where the vehicle, once we were done initially processing, there was 2 different search warrants on Mr. Dixon's vehicle. We did not know, again, originally about a chainsaw possibly being used to cut up Mr. Whitaker's bones. This, when we went back to do an additional search warrant to retrieve the chainsaw along with any other instrument, we located item number 3, which would have been the saw and the part of the hacksaw from his vehicle. And that was at Tony's Wrecker Service at his impound lot, and that's in Hocking County, Laurelville, Ohio.
How did the defendant's vehicle get from King Amorites to Tony's Wrecker Service?
By Tony's Wrecker Service.
You guys had it towed there?
So we took it, when we seized it originally from Benton County, I had a Benton County search warrant since I was located, the vehicle was located in Benton County. I obtained a search warrant from Benton County to bring the vehicle to our jurisdiction in Hocking County. I then obtained an additional search warrant for us to search the vehicle, and that was done actually right behind where we're located. We have a garage from the former sheriff's office where that was processed from. Originally, when it was processed from BCI, Tony's Wrecker Service took custody of it and took it to their impound lot where this was located when we did the search warrant.
So the defendant didn't drive it there, you had it taken?
Correct, yes.
Detective, Lieutenant, in addition to having the defendant do a walkthrough, you also had Melody do a walkthrough at the location, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And without getting into specifics, her account was different than the defendant's account of what happened, is that correct?
That is correct.
Lieutenant, I'm going to approach and have you identify State's Exhibit Triple G
Yeah.
and State's Exhibit Triple H.
Do you want this back? Thank you.
Do those look familiar to you, Lieutenant?
Yes, they do.
Tell me what those are.
The first item, which is State's Exhibit Triple H, this is the Montgomery County Coroner's Office report on James Whitaker's autopsy, the postmortem examination of Mr. Whitaker.
Okay. And what is the other item?
Item number GGG, which is this, is a copy of a certified copy of the death certificate of Mr. Whitaker that I obtained.
And you use that as part of your investigation as well?
That is correct. It becomes important in a homicide investigation. Yeah.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes, you may.
Take a look at what's been marked as State's Exhibit Triple V. I'm sorry, Double V. What do you see here?
This is an aerial of the Whitaker property. This would be the residence at 23605 Chestnut Grove Road.
Okay. Could you approach the monitor and identify where the house is located? Living quarters.
It's kind of camouflaged in this picture, but the residence itself, this would be the roadway, this is the garage, the residence would be here.
And where would the burn pit be located?
The burn pit is located in this area here.
And where is the garage barn area?
The garage barn area is this area right here.
Let's stay up there. Here, what's been marked as Stakes Exhibit. What exhibit is this, John?
PP.
Stakes Exhibit PP. There are some markings on this exhibit, is that correct, Lieutenant?
Yes, I see a green box and a red circle.
What are those highlighted?
The green box would be, again, this is the residence, Mr. Whitaker's residence. The red circle would be the burn pit area.
And can you show us where about you measured from to get 290 plus feet?
I started at the end of the porch. I walked down the driveway or the pathway to the driveway. I went through here, so between the garage and a pile of items, and walked around to the burn pit.
So that pile of items across from the barn area, that's not the burn pit, correct?
That is correct. I recall bicycles, I think maybe a mower, and I believe this is the white tarp that I recall was there covering those items.
Thank you. Lieutenant, you indicated there are a lot of photos taken, is that correct?
That's correct. Every time we went to a crime scene, even the same pictures were retook. So every time we were in the burn pit, more pictures were taken. As we went, more pictures were taken as well. So there's a series of several photographs.
Okay, can you take a look at the screen for me? We have a series of exhibits numbered with letters from, from exhibit B to exhibit Q, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, sir.
You had an opportunity to look at these electronic files before coming into court, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And what are those electronic files?
These are photographs of our investigation.
Sorry, what Stakes exhibit B, 47 pages, is that correct?
Yes.
What do you see here, Lieutenant?
This is another picture of Mr. Whitaker's mailbox. You'll notice the address is on the mailbox. This is taken from the roadway. The road to your right is the driveway to the property.
Okay. Page 2.
This is a picture from the driveway. This is going back towards the residence.
Page 3.
This is a picture that's taken towards the burn pit. The burn pit would be located right behind the deer target.
Page 4.
A picture of the arm bones we talked about. This would be between the burn pit and the residence.
Page 5.
This is a picture taking from the bones shooting back towards the burn pit.
Page 6.
The burn pit.
7.
A closer picture of the burn pit.
8.
Burn pit, and that's actually, yeah, it's pointing to number 1. It's a bone.
Page 9.
That is a scene placard number 1, indicating the bone structure to the left.
Page 10.
A closer picture of what we just spoke,
Page 11.
and then a further closer up picture of item number 1.
Page 12.
Crime scene placard number 2. This is the chainsaw blade.
Page
This is a picture of where the blade was located in the burn pit with crime scene placard number 2 in the middle.
Okay, Lieutenant Detective, you had an opportunity to look at this entire series, is that correct?
That is correct.
When were these photos taken?
This would have been the second dig. This would have been on August the 10th of 2020.
Okay, and all of these photos are clear and accurate depictions of the scene that day?
Yes, the entire series that you showed me with all the exhibits, those would be a true collection of photographs from the crime scene from that period of time.
Okay. And even the photos after this, because you've looked at this series, are also clear and accurate depictions, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I went through that entire PDF series that he showed you, and those are the correct crime scene photographs, or photographs taken from this investigation.
This is the series you're talking about?
Yes, it's labeled Exhibit B all the way down to Exhibit Q.
Thanks, Exhibit C, what is this?
That is Mr. Dixon's vehicle. Again, that was parked at Amarine's residence just inside Vinton County.
Okay. And this begins page 48, correct?
Yes, it's labeled page 0048 on the bottom right.
And page 49?
It's a side view, the passenger side view of that same vehicle.
Page 50?
In the front portion showing the passenger side in the front of the vehicle.
Page 51?
And the front driver's side of the vehicle.
States Exhibit D?
This would have been from the series from Tuesday, July the 28th of 2020. I know that because of the crime scene tape. This would have been that 23605. This would be Whitaker's mailbox.
Page 53?
The mailbox would be on your left, and the crime scene tape would be blocking the driveway, and then you'd be taken towards the residence.
And we can see right off of the side here that Ron's vehicle that is in a lot of the other photos, correct?
That is correct.
Page 3? I'm sorry, page 54 of States Exhibit D.
Again, it's another picture showing from the driveway, from the roadway, shooting down the driveway towards the residence.
States Exhibit D, page 55.
This is a picture to the right, so this is showing the inner and the outer perimeter that's been cordoned off.
Page 56.
This would be a picture towards the right, so we're getting towards the right would be where the burn pit's located.
Page 57.
Picture of the garage.
58.
Another picture of the driveway.
59.
Picture of the driveway closer, it's panning to the right towards the burn pit, and then the back left would be the residence.
Page 60.
This is the middle of the cordon off area. The burn pit would be on your right-hand side.
Page 61.
The burn pit would be indicated by that blue tarp in the middle of the picture.
And there are 288 photos in this series, is that correct, Lieutenant?
Yes, sir.
Do you feel that there are any photos in this series that we that are important to talk about that we haven't discussed already?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And however, they were relevant to the investigation, is that correct?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Exhibit E, what is this photograph of, Lieutenant?
I believe this was August the 3rd. This is the garage. This is the sheriff's office garage I was talking about. This is a secured facility where the vehicle was transported to from Vinton County on the search warrant, and I obtained the additional search warrant for us to actually search this vehicle now. It was processed by BCI.
Page 341.
Same garage. This is a driver's side photo of Mr. Dixon's vehicle.
Page 342.
This be the front photograph of the same vehicle.
Page 343.
And the passenger side, the front portion of the passenger side vehicle.
Page 344.
And this will be a rear portion of the driver's side of the vehicle.
Page 345.
That's a copy of the search warrant indicating for us to search the vehicle.
346.
The driver's side door that's open.
Is there anything you would like to talk about more specifically with respect to this series of photos before I move on to the next set?
I don't believe so. This is the lot that I spoke about. This is Tony's impound lot where the vehicle was kept, and we did the additional search warrant to obtain the chainsaw.
Page 373.
It's a reflection of me taking a picture of the back portion of the vehicle.
Page 374.
It's a picture of the front of the vehicle.
Page 375.
Additional picture of the front of the vehicle.
Page 376.
That is the driver's side door of the vehicle, and Mr. Dixon's identification card is laying on the driver's seat.
Page 377.
This is the chainsaw that we seized from the vehicle.
Page 378.
That is the photograph of the ID I spoke to about the driver's side seat.
Page 379.
Number 2, crime scene placard 2, I spoke about before, but that is the Husqvarna chainsaw that we removed from the vehicle.
Page 380.
That is a copy of my search warrant to search this vehicle again. The yellow sheet, that's a white sheet underneath it. The yellow sheet above it says Hocking County Sheriff's Office, if you can read it, and that is the inventory. So I have to leave an inventory saying all the items we took out of that vehicle, and that's what that is.
So it was processed by ECI, then you went back and looked at it?
That is correct.
Case Exhibit G.
This is a picture of a Remington 1100 shotgun.
What is the significance of this?
This is actually Mr. Whitaker's gun that Mr. Dixon sold.
Where did you retrieve this gun from?
That came from, originally Dixon sold it to Tommy Kahn. Tommy said that he resold it to a guy by the name of Clint Ashmore, and that's where that came from.
So this is Mr. Whitaker's gun that you were later able to retrieve?
That is correct.
The defendant sold it?
That is correct.
Page 383 of State's Exhibit.
It's just the same item turned over to show the other side.
State's Exhibit 384, page 384, State's Exhibit G.
It's the same gun. I'm just photographing with the crime scene placard number 1, the serial number, I believe, on the firearm. There we go.
Page 385.
And that is okay. It's the model is what I'm taking a photograph showing the model.
386, page 386.
Crime scene placard number 2, this is the gun case that the Winchester came out of.
Page 387.
And again, that's the 1400 shotgun that was recovered from John Dixon's vehicle.
Page 388.
Close up of the same item.
Page 389.
An additional close up of the same item.
Page 390.
And that is a photograph of the model along with the serial number for the shotgun.
Page 391.
This was a scope that Kevin Kahn bought and put on it, or to put on it.
Page 392.
And that's an additional photograph of the item.
Of the scope that Kevin Kahn put on Mr. Whitaker's weapon.
I believe that was one, I don't recall how he got that, but I remember him purchase it from Dale's bait store.
Is this the same scope or a different scope?
I believe that's a different scope.
Exhibit H.
This is a photograph of Mr. Whitaker's residence. This is at the end of the driveway with the walk path to the residence.
Exhibit H, page 394.
This is a picture of the basement where Mr. Dixon and Melody was living.
Page 395.
And that's an additional picture of the basement showing the back door.
Page 396.
That is a picture of outside the back door shooting in or taking a picture from inside the residence.
Page 397.
That is a Dell computer that was seized on the search warrant from the basement.
Did you find anything of significance on this computer?
Yeah, when we opened it up, there was a message saying the Shocking County Sheriff's Office was looking for you. I'm guessing or assuming that it meant Hocking County, but there was a message indicating that was on the laptop saying that the Sheriff's Office was looking for Mr. Dixon.
Page 398.
This is an additional picture. So this is upstairs showing that path where Mr. Dixon said he shot Whitaker from the wall, and you see the white cord running through, and to the right would be the shelving unit.
Did you find any markings on the shelving unit?
No markings. There was blood spatter on to the left of that, I think is indicated with further pictures.
Page 399.
Yeah, that's just another picture of the wall with the blood spatters back in the back of that wall there.
Page 400.
And additional pictures of the blood spatter to the left.
Page 401.
This is a pantry shelf or a cabinet that was located, that was moved from the kitchen and pushed back the hallway. The bathroom would be on your right, and Mr. Whitaker's bedroom would be on your left.
Page 402.
There are some red indication, look like fingerprint smears. I don't know what left those marks. I don't believe those are blood marks. It doesn't look like blood to me, but there's some kind of red pigment to the fingerprint smears.
Page 403.
Just another picture of that.
Page 404.
Those are two cell phones that were located in the kitchen in the residence.
Page 405.
5 contained ash, a bucket of ash that we discovered downstairs. We didn't see any. It was just ash. I did not see any human remains, but it was a bucket of ash.
Page 406.
That is, I believe that's an indication of more blood spatter on the wall.
407.
This is an interesting picture. After we found the crime scene, this you could actually see what appeared to be blood coming from. So this is the basement from Mr. Dixon's bedroom or area, living area, shooting up the towards the ceiling, right above where Mr. Whitaker was killed, and you can see what appears to be blood actually dripping down, dried blood dripping down.
Page 408.
This is 1, 2, 3 boxes of 12 gauge ammunition.
Page 409.
That is the shot shell that we talked about earlier that was located in the basement.
Page 410.
And that is Melody Dixon's driver's license.
411.
And that is a picture from the front porch shooting back into the residence.
Page 412.
This at the door, the front door threshold, shooting towards inside. So again, that light is where the kitchen is, and to the right would be the basement.
Page 413.
That is to the left of the stairs going up the kitchen, or excuse me, the kitchen.
Page 414.
A picture of the kitchen.
415.
That is, thank you. This is a picture where the fridge was removed to, shooting back the hallway from the kitchen. So we're sitting in the kitchen, the fridge was moved to the left, and the bed, Mr. Whitaker's bedroom would be behind there on the left. The bathroom would be on the right side.
Page 416.
I believe that's Mr. Whitaker's bedroom. Yes, that's Mr. Whitaker's bedroom.
Page 417.
And that's a picture of the items that was on top of the bed used by Mr. Whitaker.
Page 418.
That is the bathroom.
Page 419.
I believe that's the basement. So I'm on top of the stairs shooting down towards the basement, towards Mr. Dixon's bedroom and Melody's bedroom.
Page 420.
That is a picture of the basement.
Page 421.
Again, this is the basement. The outside door is on your right corner, and this is going back towards the washer and dryer area of the residence.
Page 422.
This is a picture of the back door of, this is from the basement. The outside doors to my back, and then the bedrooms would be located, what you're seeing there in front of it.
Page 423.
Additional photograph of the same.
424.
That's a copy of the search warrant on your left, and on the right again is the inventory that I left, saying the items we took as evidence.
Page 425.
That is the front door of the residence.
Exhibit I, we have here, Lieutenant.
This is the property. This is taking from the driveway, showing a car that's overturned. The burn pit would be on your right-hand side.
Page 428.
This is a picture taken from the driveway. Garage would be on your left. That's a BCI crime scene truck located in the back, back middle, towards the residence.
430.
That is a can of Coleman camp fuel that was located in that trash pile or that pile beside the garage.
Page 432.
A closer photograph of the Coleman camp fuel.
Again, why is that significant, Lieutenant?
That was specifically mentioned by Mr. Dixon and Melody, I believe, being used to either start or continue to burn Mr. Whitaker.
Page 434.
That's a placard view, so that yellow 21, what you see, that is a crime scene placard indicating that's item 21.
Lieutenant, is there anything else of significance that you can think of with respect to this series of photos?
Not that we haven't talked about now.
Page 438.
A picture of the kitchen. This is where the fridge in the shelf actually originally was located.
439.
Again, a picture of the kitchen with the fridge on your right-hand side.
So in later other photos, we saw the fridge on the left-hand side, is that correct?
That is correct.
How did did it start, when you were there, when you first arrived, did it start on the right or on the left?
When we first got there, originally in the crime scene, it would have been on the left-hand side. So it'd be the left-hand side of the picture. Once we found out that the crime scene actually had been altered, we were able to try to put it back to be able to find the evidence to show where it was originally at.
So was your goal to kind of recreate the original crime scene?
Yes, that is correct.
Six exhibit I, page 442.
That is a picture of how it looked once the fridge was put back in the original location. This is from the kitchen shooting back towards the bathroom in the bedroom on your left.
Is it okay if we move on from this series of photos, Lieutenant?
I believe so, yes.
Exhibit J.
Another photograph series of the refrigerator being on the left-hand side. Additional photograph of the fridge.
We have here, page 458.
A picture taken from the steps going towards the kitchen.
449, or 459, I'm sorry. 1 second, rotate.
That is the kitchen. That's how the condition we found it in, with the shelving turned sideways, blocking that back door. Again, that's the original crime scene where the shelf was moved.
This shelf with the flag on it?
Yes, so what we find out later, the shelf was actually turned perpendicular. It was actually setting at a sideways view out.
Page 461.
Additional photograph of how the original crime scene was.
Okay, so,
When we found it, I should say. Let me clarify that answer. That's the original crime scene photograph.
okay. How the scene looked, according to the defendant, that night that the victim was killed.
Can you ask that again?
You said the original crime scene. Is it when the victim was killed or when you saw it?
To clarify that, it's when we saw it. It wouldn't have been the original crime scene. It'd be our original crime scene when we first observed it. That's how it looked.
Okay. But we know that the defendant changed it from the time he killed Mr. Whitaker, is that right?
That is correct.
And behind this bookshelf, is there a door?
Yes, you can see the top of the door, the light coming from top of the shelf. That's actually the window from the door.
Is there anything else of significance that would be helpful to explain this to the jury in this set of photos?
Not that I know of right now.
Okay, you got here.
This be a photograph of the front of the structure, the front of the residence.
Page 516.
That's another picture of the basement. Photograph of the basement door going down towards the basement.
518.
I think that's it looks like the front, yeah, thank you. It's the front of the residence at night.
Again, you indicated that each time you went out, you took photographs, is that correct?
That is correct. So we documented what it looked like when we got there, and then we take another series of whatever the reason we're processing, and then we would take another picture of the closing picture to show what it was when we left, or what it appeared to be.
Okay. This is an L.
This is a picture. It's inside our sheriff's office. I processed the sled. BCI originally didn't process it. I pull it out to process the sled and the shovel that you see in this picture.
The rake?
The rake, I'm sorry.
Yeah, what was this rake used for?
That is the rake that was actually used to stoke the fire.
Okay. By whom?
Defendant, Mr. Dixon.
Page 520.
That is an area that indicated to me possible blood that I swabbed. That's what those two red areas are to the left of the number one.
Here and here.
That is correct.
Exhibit M.
This is a picture of the Winchester 1400, and this was taken after being recovered from John Dixon at Frank Species residence on Sam's Creek Road, Hocking County, Ohio.
Exhibit N.
This is additional photographs. This is the mailbox to Mr. Whitaker's residence.
Page 524.
Again, this is the original crime scene. These are taken by Lieutenant Champ. I know that because the patrol cameras have the time and date on them. So that's how I know it's the ones that he took on July 25th. It's timestamp 2156, which would be 9:56.
Which would be what time?
9:56 p.m.
Page 525.
It's blurry, but I believe that is Mr. Whitaker's bedroom.
Page 526.
An additional photograph of Mr. Whitaker's bedroom.
Page 527.
Mr. Whitaker's bedroom photograph.
Page 528.
That is of the bathroom.
Page 529.
A photograph of the tub in the bathroom.
Page 530.
The shelving in the bathroom.
Page 531.
This is a photograph taken in the kitchen, the fridge, where we originally found it on the left, shooting back towards Mr. Whitaker's with the open door on the left, his bedroom, and then the bathroom would be on the right-hand side.
Page 532.
The kitchen area,
Page 533.
again, a kitchen area.
534.
This is that shelving that was inverted or turned. That would have been where that was.
535.
Kitchen showing the back corner where the table is located.
See a black chair at the lower left corner, is that correct?
Yes,
See a desk area here, is that right?
that is correct.
535. I'm sorry, page 536.
So this was the kitchen table we just spoke about would be on our left. So this is actually the first picture that you've seen where it's going from the kitchen out towards the front. So the stairs going down to go outside would be on your right. And then if you go to your left, just around the corner, you can't see that, it would be the basement going down.
537.
This would be the same area, but this is where that large screen TV was allegedly sat.
Where?
This is where that 65-inch we previously spoke. To the best of my ability, this is where that sat. There's actually straps that held it down that was there.
Okay, so the fan and the lamp, those items were at least made room for that TV?
I don't know where the lamp or the fan would be located, but there was a TV that sat there. So I'm not sure if those items would still be on that little ledge area or if they were never there to start with. I do not know.
Anything else of significance with respect to this set that you can recall?
No, that is just the initial crime scene photographs by Lieutenant Champ.
State's Exhibit O.
Additional photographs, that would be the beginning of a series was showing the address, the mailbox, Mr. Whitaker's, being back at that residence.
Okay. Page 577 of O.
This is the driveway, that vehicle we've seen set in the driveway with the other series of pictures. Burn pit would be on your right, or towards your right, and the house would be farther back left.
State's Exhibit 578.
This would be that pile that's located across from the garage area.
State's Exhibit 579, page 579, State's Exhibit O.
Additional items to the right, and then the residence is that back left.
State's Exhibit O, page 580.
This would be the side of the barn facing the residence or the garage area.
State's Exhibit 581.
It'd be a red truck sitting in the driveway between the garage and the residence.
State's Exhibit 582.
Additional photograph of the residence itself.
State's Exhibit 583.
I believe this is an out portion, maybe a kennel where they kept a dog or animal. It's like a fenced-in area.
6 to the 584.
That was the dog box.
6 to the 585.
Additional picture of the residence.
6 to the 586.
A closer picture of the residence.
6 to the 587.
This is the pathway leading up to the residence.
6 to the 588.
That'd be the side of the pathway leading up to the residence.
6 to the 589.
The front porch,
6 to the 590.
front
590.
front door.
591.
This would be on the left side of the porch,
592.
and this again would be on the left side of the porch.
Lieutenant, did you have any reason for us to go and look at all of these other photos? If there's anything of significance, let me know.
All right, nothing that I'm aware of.
Okay. Can we approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may. All right, I believe this will be the opportune time to take a break. So we're going to take a fairly lengthy break, so we'll have you back at 1 o'clock. So as I've told you before, do not discuss the case among yourselves. Do not permit anybody to discuss it with you or in your presence. It is your duty not to form or express any opinion on the case until it's finally submitted to you. So have a good lunch, and we'll see you back at 1 o'clock. Thank you.